this tutorial, I'm going to be adding some watercolour technique to the panels that we've put around the bottom of this cake. It's a relatively straightforward and quick technique, simply using some petal dusts and some dipping solution or rejuvenator spirit. You can also use clear alcohol for this, or something like vodka, but please bear in mind that that has quite a bit more water in it than this, which is a much higher alcohol content. Because of that, this will dry off much quicker than say vodka or even water, which will take, could take overnight to dry off the water. You can also use lemon extract. Nielsen Massey is a really good option to use as long as it's alcohol based and not oil based. Okay, so I am mixing this with a petal dust that you use for flower making, but you could also do the same with paste gel colours as well. So you can mix this. I've colour washed, there's a different video that shows me using navy blue and black and dark green to colour wash sugar paste on cakes as well, and that is the same sort of gel colour mixed with rejuvenator spirit. The thing I like about the petal dust is that you can sort of mix them and get a really nice set of colours, because you can just always sort of add in different tones and things like that. But what I would always suggest is you just make sure that you mix properly in the pot to make sure that you've got rid of any of the sort of graininess, and that you test your colour out. So I've just got a little board here that I use for colour testing that I've got at the moment, and you can just test it on there and see if it gives you, because it will look different in the tub, in the paint palette, than it will do on your project. The other thing to note is that obviously the less rejuvenator you put in, the deeper and more concentrated the colour will be, and the more rejuvenator spirit you add in, the more watery watery effect you'll get. So I've just also added some more clear, colourless rejuvenator spirit just into a couple more palettes, so I can water down as I go as well. If you are depending on what kind of project you're working on, depending on what kind of effect you want, may well affect the size of brush you use. For example, a smaller brush like this is going to take you longer, and also it's going to have more variation going on, whereas if you use a bigger brush, or even you could go even bigger still for something like this and just brush upwards, for example, all the way around, you will get a more consistent coverage, so fewer brush strokes, but it will also be quicker to do. So I'm just going to see what it's like with the smaller brush. If I was doing, we'll do a couple of different versions. So for example, if I started at the bottom and was colour washing up, so I wanted the colour to be more intense at the bottom, then I could just dip my brush into the rejuvenator spirit and start creating some. So I'm just popping it, instead of back into the main colour palette, I'm now sort of pulling from just the rejuvenator. But you can see how it's taken me a little while to do each one. It's quite specific because the brush is small, so my sort of area of direction is very sort of localised to exactly where the brush is. And if you're doing obviously very specific areas, then that might be fine, but you might find that actually that's taking too long and it's giving you too many sort of detailed brush strokes, and you want something a bit more big and blasé. You can go in with a bigger brush then. So for example, if we added in quite a bit more liquid into this, we can see straight away a different effect. And what I'm going to do there, because that brush has actually soaked up a lot of that colour, is just create myself some more colour in this pot here. You can see how it's a lot more concentrated where I've used the smaller brush. Fill that up as well. Mix all that grain in to make sure it's all dissolved. unless you want some nice sort of grains in there that might transfer to the cake, which might be nice. And you can create quite a mess with this, so please have anything protected that you don't want to have any splatter on or anything like that. Perhaps more intense at the bottom. And the other thing you could do is that you could have a brush that's just for rejuvenator and a brush that's going into the colour pot, and change between the two as you get further up the cake, for example. Just have a play with it. But definitely test your colour out first on a spare piece of sugar paste. So if you know you're going to be doing some colour washing or experimenting like with colours, and you want to be able to try them out before you actually put them onto your cake, definitely when you're covering your cake or doing the techniques the day before, definitely with a piece of leftover sugar paste, definitely roll it out, and just so you can try that on the scrap piece of rolled out, even if it's just, you know, roll it out onto just a board. You know, it doesn't need to be a cake board, it can just be, you know, a kitchen chopping board, and give it a try before it goes directly on your cake. And just working my way around. It's just a very abstract. And because we've got these panels, we want to make sure that we're also getting in the sides here. So just check that as well. Obviously, if you're just doing this on a flat cake, then you won't have that to worry about. But I've hardly used any colour on here. It's more Rejuvenator Spirit, really. Just checking down those side panels. Just using the Rejuvenator to just sort of really blend out the colour. Checking down those side panels each time. More Rejuvenator. Not forgetting to check down the side panels as well. So I've already done a YouTube video on creating these panels, so please do go check that out if you haven't already seen it. It's a really simple tutorial. It's quite modern and contemporary way to add texture that's quite structural compared to some of the more organic textures out there. Okay, I'm just cleaning that brush off because it's got quite a bit of colour in it. So I'm getting rid of that off there. And I'm going to go straight into a clean palette. There's still obviously colour in the brush. I'm just taking that right up to the top with hardly any colour on. It's just what's residual left in the brush. Of course, you could fade this to white if you wanted to, the original colour of the panels. And do any colour scheme you want. Rinse the brush off. And it will keep picking up colour, the brush, so just, you know, give it a rinse off every now and again. You could rinse off in water if you wanted. And then go back in with your Rejuvenator Spirit. what I sometimes do at the very end is just to go back in with my smaller brush right at the bottom to add some extra intensity at the bottom, just to give it another second layer of colour, just to really make it nice and deep and intense at the bottom, to really sort of finish off that full ombre look. Not forgetting to go into the sides of those panels all the way up. And if you've got any harsher lines where that you want to soften, you can just go back in with a bit more colour or a bit more rejuvenator to do that. I'm just going to go in while it's still wet, and just add in some more intensity right at the bottom, here and there. Again, not forgetting to do that behind the panel where they overlap. And this will dry off quite quickly because of the rejuvenated spirit and the high alcohol content in it. So even though it might look quite wet at the moment, it will dry off quite quickly. And you can just keep layering and adding, and obviously to get to the finished tone and effect that you want. It's a really nice way of playing with colour mixing and trialing colours and blending and layering. So please do have fun and have a play. And you know, you can just do this on, you just have some sugar paste that's rolled out. You can do this, you know, just, you can practice and play that way. You don't need to do it on an actual cake. You can still sort of play and practice with your colours and different brush sizes and techniques and different watered down quantities and things like that, without having to actually cover a cake and risk ruining a cake. If you're worried, that is. So I'm just blending those in with a little bit of rejuvenated spirit, just to soften those tones as they change, as they go up the panels. Some darker stuff at the bottom there. It's just knowing when to walk away. So check that you've not got any white bits down the sides of the panels if you're doing this on a panel cake like this. And then you can leave that to dry off, which will happen really quickly. So you can walk away, pop the kettle on, have a quick cup of tea, and it will be dry. And ready to do whatever else you want to do on it. Okay, so at that point, obviously I would walk away and leave that, and then you can come back, do anything else that you want to do with the cake, or even layer something else on it as well. So if you wanted to then put some gold leaf on there, you could do, or some gold luster paint, you could do. Anything else that you want to do at all, even if it was just sort of placing some flowers on, it will be fine to go ahead and do that then. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'd love to see any of your projects that you do try watercolour techniques on, and yeah, please let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.